Hey everybody, this is Bunny, and today we are here assembling miniatures. I'm just going to walk you through how you assemble a miniature carefully and what tools you're going to need just to make sure that you do it correctly. So all miniatures are a little bit different. You're going to want to look at the instructions that came with your specific miniatures. So let's start with these guys. Now these guys are official D&D miniatures. So you remove them from the package, and this comes with a base. Get rid of that package. Remove them from the package and always be a little bit gentle because you don't want to lose any pieces. Okay, and it comes with big dude, two little dudes, and two little bases. You will notice that these particular miniatures are already assembled. And they are. Okay, they are all in one piece already. They do not require any actual assembling on my part. So you can see he's got all his pieces. The only thing you might do is glue him onto a base, but I'm not going to because I kind of like the base he's got. I don't feel the need to glue him onto a larger base. Okay, so we're not going to use these bases. I'm going to save these bases because I am going to want to use them for another miniature at a later date. So don't get rid of the bases just because you're not using them. Put them away because eventually you will find a use for them. Trust me, if you throw them away, you are going to be kind of annoyed that you did that. Okay, don't throw them away. Sorry, I'm just adjusting my chair. That's better. So we've also got these two little guys. Now you will notice they don't have any pieces. Okay, they come entirely ready out of the package. So these guys are ready to prime and paint. You just want to take a look and see if there's any mold lines that need to be removed, anything that needs to be sanded off. Now these guys, these are official D&D miniatures, so they tend to be pretty clean. So these guys actually don't need that. But if I did need to sand off pieces, I would just use a little file. Now this is just a nail file. You do not have to spend a lot of money on these tools that you're going to need to assemble your miniatures. This is literally just a nail file. So if you don't like the way he's sitting, you can sand his bottom so that he sits a little flatter. If you notice there's a mold line or a nub that you want to take off, you can just grab your sandpaper, rub him on the sandpaper and sand that nub off. He doesn't really have much. No, he doesn't really have anything I feel like I have to take off. But if I did, I would just use a cheap nail file. Okay, you do not have to go out and buy some really expensive sanding sticks or anything like that. If you're just assembling miniatures and painting them for you, you do not need to go into debt to sand your mini. So I just used, this just came with a pack of lip balm, I think, that I got from my niece, and I stole the little sandy nail file. So yeah, you just use that. And you can buy really cheap nail files. Use something cheap and because you're going to throw it out. I mean, this is basically sandpaper on a pad. You're going to end up chucking these, so don't go spend a ton of money on them. So these guys are already assembled. That's good. We're not going to worry about them. So let's move on to this guy. So the majority of miniatures, you're going to buy them in a box like this. Okay, looks good. You're going to open the box, pull out your mini, and he's going to look like that. Okay? So, here's where you're going to have to do the work. Because this is work. So this is what he looks like. Keep your box because you want to be able to see what you're assembling. Okay? So keep that box, set it up so you can see it. And we're going to just walk you through how... Stop falling over. Seriously, stop. So, we're going to just walk you through how to do this and what tools you're going to need. So, in addition to your miniature, and I did make a video on acquiring your miniatures, who are good companies to buy from. So, get yourself a miniature. If he comes like this, you're going to have to assemble him. So, let's talk about the tools you're going to need, because you're going to have to assemble him, fill gaps, and remove mold lines. So, to accomplish that, you need a good quality snip. So, these are side clippers. So, when I go in to remove these from the sprue, they get really nice and close. So I'll put a link in the description to a nice set of side clippers. I love these side clippers. They came in a pack of 2, and I use the heck out of them, and they're fairly inexpensive. So when I wear them down, I can literally just chuck them and get a new pair. You're also going to want, this is just what probably you have in your junk drawer, a little tiny nail clipper. And the reason this is excellent is sometimes you go to use your side clipper and it does a good job. So it does a nice job here, right? Does a good job, but there's a little bit sticking out and it's a rounded surface. So sometimes coming in with a nail clipper is just really good to just remove that little bit of excess. So get yourself a set of nail clippers. You probably have them in your junk drawer. You're also going to want an X-Acto blade or an X-Acto knife. This is really excellent if you're trying to remove something your side clippers don't fit and you could just get in there, press, and snap that piece of plastic. Make sure you're using a new blade, a sharp blade. You don't want to be trying to use an X-Acto knife to do this with a pretty dull blade. You don't want that. Okay, so you're also going to want, like I said, something to sand with. So a nail file or sandpaper or something like that. Those are the tools you're going to need to assemble your miniatures. Okay, so let us start by removing some pieces from your sprue. Now don't just go willy-nilly and remove all the pieces from your sprue. Okay, don't just do that, because usually your miniatures are assembled in a specific order and usually they number the parts. So if you look, you probably can't see on camera, but so I'll just tell you. So this guy, the base is piece number 7. Why is the base piece number 7? Because companies are insane. In a real world, this would be piece number 1, but this is labeled as piece number 7. Okay, this guy is piece number 1. Over here we have piece number 5. Okay, so don't just willy-nilly take it off the sprue. You want to look at your directions. Now in the case of this miniature, the directions are online. So I did take a look before I started filming, but I don't have my computer in here, so if I have to pause the video and consult what's on my phone, which is what I'm recording on right now because my camera's dead, but if I have to pause and consult the manual and then, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Sometimes you have to do that. So I don't really love when they do this. I prefer an insert that has the directions, but either way, it's fine. I'll just look at the picture and I have written down the order of the parts. So you want to double check your order. Okay, don't just willy-nilly remove them from the sprues. When you are removing, so I tend to use my side clippers, when you are removing, make sure you're not removing a part that is supposed to be there. Okay, so the first piece we need to remove is piece number 7, which is this base. So when you go around, look at where it's connected and just make sure you're actually removing only what is supposed to be removed. You don't want to go in and it becomes more of an issue with other pieces, but you do not want to go in and start removing pieces that are necessary. Okay, so this guy, he actually came off really smooth. We're just going to use our sandpaper. And if the bumps don't really bother you, you don't have to. But I'm just going to give them a quick buff because I don't like bumps on the side of my bases. So we're just going to do that real quick. So that's perfect now. Now you can still see where they were connected, but you can't feel it. So don't do this by eye, do it by feel. So yes, I can see where it was connected, but I can't feel any of it. I run my finger along the edge of the base and it's smooth. So now we have our base. Technically, that is the first piece. Sorry about that. The dog was telling me that there was a delivery. That was my rabbit. My rabbit just knocked over a bunch of stuff. Okay, the animals are crazy. Never mind that. So, this is nice and smooth. If you can't feel the bumps, you're fine. If you're not bothered by the bumps, you can also leave them. Remember, you're doing this for yourself. If having a little bit of a nub on the edge doesn't bother you or you like the way it looks, then leave it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Okay, so the next piece we need, according to the order they gave us, is piece number 3. So you're going to want to take a really good look. Make sure, because sometimes these numbers are hard to see, and you want to make absolutely sure you get the right piece. So usually there will be a number and an arrow. So here's his number 3, and it points to this piece. So when you go in double check before you cut anything off, right? So here I can tell I remove this piece, okay? But I don't remove this peg. This peg at the bottom is needed for assembly. Don't remove that. So you want to check before you clip. Clip that one. Clip this one. So you go where it's connected. You want to clip in the right spot. So here, I clip here, not down here, because you want that branch. Okay, so you do that. Make sure you've got it. Make sure you've got all of them proper. Okay. Take him out. Now you just want to check where you removed the pieces, and if you need to, you give them a clip and a sand. I typically don't do too much sanding because my clips are pretty close. So that one's fine. Now you want to get your pieces and you want to dry fit them. So that means you want to check and make sure. So I know which way he goes, but you want to check and make sure. So this is backwards. He doesn't fit that way. So he fits here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is dry fit him, make sure he fits. He does. I'm not going to push that peg all the way down, because if I push the peg all the way down, it's going to be difficult to get him out without breaking that peg. So what we're going to do is put a little glue, just a little, and then push him into that peg. So what do we use for glue? I use this. This is the Gorilla Super Glue. Now, this does bond skin instantly. Okay? They're not kidding. So if I put a little bit of glue on my finger and I touch my fingers together, boom, my fingers are stuck. And it sucks. So be very careful with this. Can you use other types of glue? Sure. You can use a plastic glue, which works really well, but plastic glues only work on specific types of plastic. They don't work on resins or other types of plastic sometimes. Sometimes they only work on this one kind of plastic. So I actually prefer this Gorilla Glue, this super glue. I will put a link to this product in the video description because sometimes it's hard to get exactly the right one. Okay, you might not know exactly what one to buy because there's a whole lot of options. And I do prefer the Gorilla brand. So I only put glue on one of the surfaces. I don't put glue on both surfaces. So I'm going to put glue on this surface, just a little. You only need a little bit. So get a little bit of glue on there. And then I put the cap back on. I do not ever leave my glue with the cap off. Then you get your piece, line him up, and then you're going to push him in there. And you don't have a lot of time to work. There he goes. So now you have to not touch him for at least a couple of minutes. Okay, and you follow the directions in your miniature. You just keep doing exactly what it tells you. Okay, if you have two surfaces coming together that are really smooth, so for example, what is my next piece? I believe it's piece 6. Let's see if we can find piece 6 while we're waiting for that to dry. This is piece 6, this guy here. This is his other leg. So let's just remove piece 6 real quick. There you go. Don't be afraid to use your clippers at a funny angle because sometimes you need that funny angle to properly clip your pieces. So if you have to hold your pieces at a real strange angle, that's just the way it goes. Okay. So again, you check. I have a nub here that didn't come off all the way. Clip that extra. And then I just have, this is going to get in the way of gluing. So we just sand this little nubby down. So if you have two smooth surfaces that are going together, okay, so for example, this guy actually goes on to he sits on here, okay, so he attaches right here, and then this goes onto here. I have another nub to take off, but he goes onto there, and you'll notice the surfaces are smooth that go together. So this is really smooth, going onto the back here, that's pretty smooth. Okay, so that's how he goes in. He sits on here and attaches here. So he's actually pretty smooth. So what I like to do, if it's really smooth, to give the glue somewhere to hold, I just like to take my knife and do a couple of little score lines. And I do that on both sides, but I do them in opposite directions. So I did that one up and down like this. So this guy, I'm just gonna do a couple of score lines sideways. Then I dry fit him. Okay. So then I dry fit to make sure he will indeed fit. So he fits like that, and this piece fits like that. So then I get my glue again. Okay, we're actually gonna make this nubby even smaller. I don't like how big it is. So this has a nub here that fits into that hole there. Okay, so he'll fit nice, but the top piece didn't. So I scored that. So then again, we take our glue. Always put your cap on. So yes, you're going to spend time taking the cap on and off, but it is better that you do that. So a little bit of glue, don't overdo it. Okay, and always give your glue time to flow down. Don't get impatient. So you don't need to have so much glue that it's insane, but you do need enough that this will stick together. Okay, so then what we do, take him, fit him like that, push the foot in, and you have to hold for at least 10 seconds with this glue. Okay, so you just want to hold for at least 10 seconds. And I'm not going to make you watch me assemble the entire miniature because that's going to be really boring. But that's literally how you do it. Score if you have two smooth surfaces that gives the glue somewhere to grip. Okay, and hold for 10 seconds at least, 10 to 45 seconds. I tend to hold for about a minute. Okay, so I'm going to finish assembling this miniature off camera because you don't need to watch, and then I will come back with a few hints and tips. And I just removed it. See, that's why you're supposed to hold it for a full minute. Okay, you are supposed to hold it. So if you slip, just put it back. Okay, just put it back, grip it again, because the glue does take sometimes up to a minute to fully cement the pieces together because it is melting the plastic. So we're going to come back in a few minutes after I have finished gluing this together, because you do have to wait for each part to kind of solidify before you do the next part. If you don't wait for your glue to dry, you could end up dislodging this piece while you're putting on the next piece. Okay, so let your glue dry thoroughly, then add the next piece. So assembling an entire miniature might take an hour or two, and that's fine. I'm not going to make a video that is that long. So we're going to cut ahead and we'll come back when this miniature is finished with a couple of extra hints and tips. All right, so he is now fully assembled, my little miniature. He is not 100% dry, but he is assembled. So he's supposed to look like that, and he looks like this. So he looks actually really good, and he wasn't difficult because he was only 7 pieces, one of those being the base. So really only 6 pieces to assemble. The hardest part was getting this arm to sit properly. Okay, that was actually the hardest part. So you have to take the directions with kind of a grain of salt. Okay, because it was actually pretty tough to get this arm to stay where it was going to be, because the directions say put his body on his leg, add his other leg, add this arm, add the branches piece, so it's kind of like the head piece, and then the hat. So if I had done that, it was very, very difficult to get the arm, this arm, and even the other arm to fit properly. So what I did is I put the branches head part, so not the hat, but the actual head part on, and then I put the arms on, even though the directions told me to do arm, arm, head, and then hat. So I did that because it was just simply easier to get it to adhere. And after dry fitting, so fitting them without using any glue, I discovered there was really no reason that the arms had to go on before the head. They were just doing it, build it from the bottom up. There was really no reason. The head could easily go on and then the arm could go on next. So it didn't matter. So I changed the order of the assembly instructions. I do that a lot, so it's important to dry fit everything, make sure things fit the way you want them to, and dry fit a couple steps ahead, because you might find out, this piece doesn't really want to go on unless this piece goes first, or maybe I should put this piece on before I put that other piece. So the directions are accurate, but you might find a better way to do it. Okay, so dry fit everything before you glue it. So now we've got it assembled. Now what? Well, now this is where you check to see if there's anywhere that you want to sand or clip, anywhere that looks kind of off or feels kind of off to you. Now, he went together really, really well. Okay, so he wasn't an issue. He doesn't have any gaps. He doesn't have anything I have to fill. But what if you do? So I assembled this miniature a few days ago, and I got distracted, and she has a bunch of gaps. So if you look in there where her leg attaches to her skirt, there's actually a couple of really sizable gaps. Now, I don't care about those gaps, to be honest. I don't care. Because from a practical standpoint, she's on the board, you're not going to see them. The gap I do care about is right there. So you can see where the two sides of her skirt come together, there is a gap, and that's going to bug me. Okay, and the gap continues down from her to her leg and her skirt. So you can actually see in there that that's a gap, and it's going to annoy the heck out of me. So I'm going to fill that gap. How do you fill that gap? I'm not going to do it on camera because I typically actually don't fill. Only if there's a gap that's going to bug the heck out of me, and that one will. Okay, look at that. That's going to bother me when we're playing with her. So typically if I have a gap, I just ignore it. Like the gaps on the underside, you're not going to see because from a practical standpoint, you don't see that because she's on the board like this. You don't see that. You will see that. So I have 3 different ways I fill. 2 really. But you can fill with actually, there's stuff designed to fill. So you might want to get Milliput or you might want to get green stuff. I have both. I don't love green stuff. I do love green stuff in that it holds detail a little bit better. Okay, so you can shape it into a rope, slide it into that gap, and then kind of work so that it matches up. So you can kind of manipulate it with some silicone tools dipped in water. The problem with green stuff is it's not sandable. So on the chance that I kind of screw up a little bit, I can't sand it. It just tears. So I've got to remove it and do it again. And that's really annoying. I'm more likely to use Milliput, which is sandable. So even if I kind of get it in there and it's not real great, you can just sand it with a sanding stick or a file and you can make it look half decent. So both products work basically the same in that you take 2, they look like plasticine, and you mix one half with another half. There's 2 different colors. And you mix them together, rub them up, and then when they're one solid color, you have only a few minutes and you can shape it into a rope or you can shape it into a blob and press it into your space and fill your gaps. Okay? So that's not really that big a deal. It's kind of annoying because you have very limited time. Okay? Once the 2 colors are mixed together, the reaction starts and it's going to harden real fast. So you can fill gaps that way. And if you don't want to buy either product because they can cost a little bit of money, what you can do is actually just use hot glue. I tend to do that more often than not. I have both Milliput and green stuff in my kit, but I don't use them as often as I use hot glue. So you get your hot glue, make sure it's really pliable, squeeze it into that gap, and then you immediately use your X-Acto knife. So you would take your X-Acto knife, okay, squeeze the hot glue into that gap, and then you immediately start using your X-Acto knife to kind of shape it and squish it in. So you just would kind of manipulate your rope of hot glue, and then just cut away the excess, again with your X-Acto blade. I actually prefer that. I know it's not a product designed for that, and both Milliput and green stuff are good products, and they're designed for exactly that problem. But I actually prefer hot glue. And you might even have hot glue at home and you won't have to go and buy it. And both Milliput and green stuff, now I'll provide links to both of those products in the description because I use them. But they are a little pricey. So if you're looking to not spend a ton of money, just use some hot glue. It works. You can't use hot glue to assemble your miniature. I know someone's going to ask. You really do need to use a plastic glue or this kind of super glue. Gorilla is my favorite brand. You really do need that because hot glue is not going to hold. Hot glue does not have the chemical reaction that the Gorilla super glue has in order to get these pieces on to the point where they will never come off, right? Like I just assembled him and I can hold his arm and shake him and he's not going to come off. Now if I dropped him, he'd probably break, but he might not break where the glue was. More likely these antlers and stuff would break off. So the glue is fantastic You can't use hot glue to assemble your miniatures. You can use hot glue to fill in gaps. It is my preferred way. Now you have to do it before you prime, so you do it during your assembly process, but once you do it, it's fantastic. Okay? So that is the very basics of assembling your miniatures. So if you have your sprue here, what do you do with this? A lot of the times it can be recycled. Check the package. If the package says that it's all recyclable, then that's what you do. Okay, that's what you do. You recycle it. If not, then unfortunately you have to throw it in the garbage. That is one of the downsides of these kind of miniatures, is they do produce plastic waste. Hopefully your plastic waste is recyclable, depending on the brand and your location. Not all locations can recycle all types of plastic. So recycle it if you can, throw it in the garbage if you can't. Your boxes are always recyclable. So recycle the garbage parts if you can, but otherwise you have these beautiful miniatures ready for priming. Remember to let your glue set for 24 to 48 hours before priming. It is important that that glue get a chance to fully develop. So your glue will tell you which on the back, and in this case, you peel this back, and you can read some of the directions for it. But in general, your glue will cure in 24 to 48 hours. So at least 24 hours, let them sit. Okay, you want your glue to be fully cured before you prime over it. You don't want to lock in that glue while it is still at all tacky. So even though it feels really solid, right? He feels really solid right now. There is a possibility that if I prime him now, he will not seal properly. So let your glue cure 24 to 48 hours, depending on the type of glue you're using and which product. And then you are done assembling your model. They are really easy to assemble. Don't be afraid to go off the directions if you have to. So that is literally it for assembling your models. We will come back next week and talk about how to prime your models, because that is a whole thing in and of itself. So hopefully you have some fun assembling your own models. That's it for today, and I hope you'll be back with us next time. Bye!